Coming up on today's show, we're going to look at free agents at offensive line, wide receiver, as well as defensive linemen that the Giants could potentially sign in this upcoming free agency. The Giants have a whole lot of holes to fill, and we're going to do that on today's video. You're watching Giants Now by Chat Sports. I am your host, Marshall Green. The Giants are projected to have roughly around $47.5 million heading into the offseason. That number can go up by a good bit, though, by cutting or restructuring certain contracts on this team. You talk about who made the Giants look towards an NFL free agency. I don't think they'll go sign a quarterback because I think they're going to draft one. But definitely O-line, definitely wide receiver, definitely edge, and probably even wide receiver again. That's why we got that listed on there twice. So right now the Giants sit at $47.6 million in cap space. But they can up that number to almost $60 million in cap space by making three simple cuts. They are going to move on from Mark Lewinsky. The Giants will save $5.7 million by cutting Mark Lewinsky. Also, Darius Slayton. The Giants save $6 million by cutting him. And then I also believe that they will cut Aaron Robinson, who Lord knows where he is at this point. Look, only played in the first 2 weeks last year, and he's been on IR ever since. If you cut Lewinsky, you cut Darius Slayton, and you cut Aaron Robinson, the Giants' cap space would go all the way up to roughly $60.6 million in cap space. Well, you do have that money. You also got to think about the future, but you also may have to spend some of that money to bring back some of the players that are on your team right now that are upcoming free agents, like guys like Saquon Barkley, who I believe the Giants are going to keep in town. Not sure if they agree to a long-term deal with Saquon, but I think a franchise tag could be coming, which is going to eat up, once again, probably $12 million of your cap space. You look at Xavier McKinney, that's supposed to say safety. I'm not sure that the Giants are going to bring back Xavier McKinney. I'm not so sure the Giants bring back Adoree Jackson either. And you get a guy like Isaiah Simmons. I'd like to bring him back. Athletic player, can play multiple spots on defense. I liked what I saw from Ashawn Robinson so far this year. Good run stuffer. Ben Bredesen, you might bring him back for some depth on the O-line. Jihad Ward, he's been a good locker room culture guy. Maybe bring back Tyrod Taylor, but I would actually like to go get a more, I would say, less injury-prone quarterback to back up my guy than Tyrod Taylor. But I could see the Giants bringing back a couple of these guys. Before we get to my top free agent targets for the 2024 cycle, I want to hear from you. Outside of quarterback, what is the Giants' biggest need on this team? Let me know in the comment section. Outside of quarterback, what is the Giants' biggest need? Sound off for me down below. One of the biggest needs on this team is edge rushers. The Giants have to add more talent on the defensive line to where they can win with just 4 players. I love Thibodeau. I love Dexter Lawrence, but that is simply just not enough. Danielle Hunter is an extremely good football player. I believe he has 11.5 sacks right now on the season. He's been a monster for Minnesota all year long, and he's a guy that is going to command top money in free agency. I believe that he is going to be the best edge rusher in this class, and the Giants may look to sign a guy like him. Brian Burns will also join Danielle Hunter as a top edge rusher in this class. These are the top 2 guys, in my opinion, but I will say both these guys could be franchise tagged by both of their current teams. But they are going to be the 2 top guys at that position. Danielle Hunter, he's an absolute beast. Brian Burns is an absolute beast. A guy that may actually enter free agency and not be franchise tagged and be the top edge rusher. What about Josh Allen? Not Josh Allen of the Bills. Josh Allen, the outside linebacker of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know there's a lot of people that are were interested in the Giants drafting Josh Allen a couple of years ago and then making a couple trades for him. He's an extremely talented edge rusher, and the Giants have a need there. He's young. He's got a lot of upside. Would not be opposed to giving him a big-time check this offseason. Chase Young, who was recently just traded from the Washington Commanders to the San Francisco 49ers. While Chase Young is definitely an extremely talented player, I'm a little bit worried about his availability. He missed a lot of games so far through his career, and I think that San Francisco traded for him for a reason, and it wasn't just an 8-game rental. I think they're going to pay him a lot of money in free agency, but if they don't, I'd love to see him wear New York Giants blue. Also, another edge rusher, Josh, how do you say it, Rolly?
Uche.
Josh Uche. Thank you, producer Rolly, being a real one. This is a guy that hasn't played all that much this year, had not had that much success. Only played in a handful of snaps last week for the New England Patriots. But he had an excellent season last year for New England. 11.5 sacks for him last year. Is he a product of the New England Patriots system? I don't know. I'm always worried about paying New England Patriots. But a guy that's had 11.5 sacks in a season before, Giants haven't needed that position. He's definitely a guy that I would keep my eyes on. I know this. If the Giants make any moves, if the Giants do anything, we are going to break it down and get you guys a video as soon as possible. Subscribe to Giants Now for free Giants content every day. Give us a shot. And then if in a week you think this guy sucks up here with a widow's peak, that's cool. You can unsubscribe. But give us a little bit of a try out here. Subscribe to the channel right now. Coming up next, we're going to look at the wide receiver position as well as the offensive line position as players that the Giants could sign in NFL free agency. But first, I got to give a huge shout out to today's sponsor and a thank you to Prize Picks for sponsoring Giants Now by Chat Sports. If you play fantasy sports and you want to start playing daily fantasy sports and have the opportunity to win real money and take it out of your account whenever, go to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use the promo code CLNS, and Prize Picks will match your initial deposit up to $100. What I love about it is how easy it is. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. You always get lost in the sauce. Daily fantasy, it's so hard to play. Not Prize Picks. All you do is create a lineup of 2 to 6 players and just choose more or less on their projected stat total. This is the lineup that I'm going to be rolling with for this Sunday's slate of games in the NFL. I'm going to go with more passing yards for Dak. He tore up the Giants. I think he's going to do the same to the Panthers. I'm going with less passing yards for Bryce Young against the Cowboys. Defense is pretty good. I'm going to go with more rushing yards for Saquon Barkley. I think he's going to get the rock a lot this week against Washington. Get started playing daily fantasy today with our proud sponsor, Prize Picks. It's prizepicks.com/CLNS, promo code CLNS. From edge rushers to wide receivers, the top guy that could enter free agency at that wide receiver position is T. Higgins. We've talked about trading for T. Higgins before, and I think that there is a real possibility that T. Higgins could actually enter free agency. Look, the Cincinnati Bengals as a franchise don't have a lot of money. There's a reason they need a sponsorship for their stadium. They've already paid Joe Burrow. They've already paid, or they're going to have to pay, Jamar Chase. And how many guys are they going to be able to afford? They've got some expensive players on their defense. I think there's a legit shot that T. Higgins could actually enter free agency. If you're looking for a veteran option, what about a guy that's had 9 straight 1,000-yard receiving seasons? What about Mike Evans? To be honest with you, I don't like the idea of paying a lot of money for a veteran receiver, but Mike Evans has proved it year in and year out. He is an elite receiver in this league, and I think having a guy like Drake May, rookie quarterback, or maybe a guy like Caleb Williams, having a proven receiver on the outside can always help with that. If you're looking for a little bit of a younger wide receiver that's still a really good player, what about Calvin Ridley of the Jacksonville Jaguars? They just added him to their roster last year, so maybe, they're going to try to keep him around long term. I think he's a good player, extremely smart football player. Maybe he doesn't make the best decisions when it comes to betting on the National Football League, but he's a guy that can get open and get north and south of the football in his hands, and he's a playmaker, and the Giants, they need more of those guys on their football team. If you're looking for a deep threat, one of the best deep threats in the National Football League, what about Hollywood Brown of the Arizona Cardinals? I would like to find a more possession receiver, a guy that can get open and win with true route running skills. You already have a guy like Jalen Hyatt who could push the defense deep, but I do like the idea of having more speed on this football team. A guy that I am intrigued by is Michael Pittman, the young wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts. I've been really impressed by him to start his NFL career. Liked him a lot coming out of college. He's a player that I think would fit very easily into this Brian Daboll offense, and I think he'd be a good big body receiver for a young QB to have. Other notable wide receivers that could be free agents if they don't sign with their team or get franchise tag. Tyler Boyd of Cincinnati, Gabe Davis of Buffalo. We know the connection of Brian Daboll, Joe Schoen to the Buffalo Cats, KJ Osborne of the Minnesota Vikings, Josh Reynolds, as well as Kendrick Bourne. Some of these guys are pretty good. There's going to be some talented wide receivers out there. Giants can absolutely add a couple more playmakers to this football team. The part of the show that everybody's waiting for, the offensive line. I know Connor Williams plays center, but I want the Giants to sign him to go play guard. He played guard before for Dallas, and right now, Pro Football Focus has Connor Williams ranked as the 6th center in the National Football League. You could slide him to guard, have him mentor a young guy like John Michael Schmitz, and be an immediate, successful impact player for this offensive line. Would not hate it. What about Jonah Williams, the right tackle for the Cincinnati Bengals? Good player, still young. Not an elite player by any means, but a solid player. And he's a guy that could step in and be an immediate starting right tackle. I guess this is going to depend on if the Giants are going to go out and potentially let Evan Neal once again be that starting right tackle. I don't know if they can be. I'm a little bit worried about his future. He showed us he's not a good right tackle, and I don't believe he could be a good right guard in this league as well. If you're looking for potentially another guard to sign, what about Dalton Risner of the Minnesota Vikings? Right now, just came back into the NFL, missed a couple of games to start this season as he was a free agent, but he's been pretty good so far for the Minnesota Vikings. And he's a guy that I begged for the Giants to sign all offseason long. I'm a fan of him. I think he's going to be good for a long time in the league. Still a young player, and any help the Giants can get on the offensive line is going to help this team tremendously. It's time to invest in your investments if you are the New York Giants. You're going to draft another young quarterback this year. I think that is pretty obvious at this point. And if you do so, you need to have an offensive line in front of him that, one, can keep him upright, that can keep him healthy, because the offensive line you have right now, and knocked out Daniel Jones for the season, it put Tyrod Taylor on IR, and now it has Tommy DeVito getting x-rays after the game for that. So Dalton Risner, who is currently ranked 55th by Pro Football Focus. What about Evan Brown of the Seattle Seahawks? He is a guy that can play center, he can play guard, and right now Pro Football Focus has him ranked as the 26th center in the National Football League, but he's played all over the offensive line for Seattle. But the guy that I want the Giants to go out and get the most is Robert Hunt. He could play guard, he could play tackle. He's been playing right guard for the Miami Dolphins this year, and Pro Football Focus has him ranked as the 9th guard in the NFL right now. Go give him a lot of money, or Connor Williams, either one of those guys. You're going to have potentially $60 million in cap space. You're going to save franchise tag Saquon Barkley. That brings you down to about $47 million. Robert Hunt would be an elite signing by the New York Giants. We just went through about 20 players on today's show. I want you to name a free agent you want the Giants to sign. Give me a name. Give me a name down in the comment section right now. Remember, you can give me a follow over on Twitter at @MarshallGreen_. I'm tweeting about the Giants all day, every day. And I want to follow some Giants fans back. So if you DM me saying free agency, I'm going to give you a follow back. @MarshallGreen on Twitter. DM me free agency. I'll give you a follow back.